How is it going, everyone? Laughing here, and today I'm going to be reviewing that time I got reincarnated as a slime. But before I get to the review, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. It is much appreciated. So yes, this is actually my first anime I am reviewing on the channel. Definitely more to come. And specifically, this is season 1 of the anime. I just finished it the other day, and I will be reviewing season 2 down the line. I know I'm pretty behind on this. I've kind of been behind on the anime scene for a little bit now, but hey, I'm trying my best to catch up. So hopping right into it. So that time I got reincarnated as a slime starts off with the main character living as kind of an average guy in Japan. He's out with a coworker and his fiance, and he just randomly gets stabbed in the street and dies. It's a rather shocking opening, I'll be honest. And basically from there, he gets transported to another realm, a fantasy realm where there's orcs, ogres, heroes, dragons, what have you. And he's reincarnated as, probably no surprise the most, a slime, a very, very lowly, low end creature. But hey, he has fantastic RNG. He spawns where there's a bunch of healing flowers and magica crystals, and he meets a surprising ally, which names him, which that is really important in this show. Basically, humans and dwarves, they all have names. They're all kind of considered higher level creatures in it, but the lower level creatures like the ogres, the goblins, slime, if you will, they actually evolve when they get a name. Sometimes it is a full evolution from like a goblin to like a hobgoblin. And sometimes it's a little bit less noticeable. But he is named in the show, like kind of right off the bat, which is kind of cool. And then he kind of goes off into the rest of the world where he stumbles upon a goblin village, and he helps them out. And from there on, he bumps into a lot of different creatures and tribes, and he just kind of accidentally, slowly, kind of makes his own nation in the forest, and he has to keep on fighting whatever big kind of scary elements are facing them at the time. So as you kind of go through the story, you pick up a lot of really interesting characters, which is really cool, and they kind of keep on upping the ante of the next bad guy. So now that you have a base idea of kind of what it's about, let's talk about the animation. The animation in the show is pretty good. It's not bad, so that's definitely a plus. It's definitely not on like Demon Slayer or like Studio Ghibli levels. It is pretty good though. I'd say it's standard for an anime, to be honest with you. It does not use a lot of CGI, which I know a lot of people are really big on. I'll be honest with you, I'm for the most part one of them. I really hate CGI in anime. There's only one kind of instance that I can kind of remember off the top of my head, and it just kind of made sense. There's just a lot of kind of character models on screen, and I don't really expect really any studio to knock that out. There's just a lot of characters. Like, it's supposed to be like 10,000 characters all in one shot. Yeah, all right. CGI'd. Wasn't that long, and you don't really see it that much after that, which is actually really nice. When talking about story, you guys kind of have a basic idea of what it is now, and maybe you've already seen it as well. In general, I thought the story was pretty interesting. It kept me kind of going throughout it. I really like the idea that the more the main character went through the series, kind of the more responsibilities they got, the more friends that they met, which I really enjoy a lot of the characters in the story as well. And I just in general found it really interesting. The biggest issue with the anime as a whole is the threat levels. And really, it's the lack of threat levels. So after the slime gets out of the cave, he's faced with all these different obstacles and challenges, and it's never really on the level of like, oh, this is like a big showdown or anything like that. Whether it's the slime doing the fighting, his friends, or those who work with him. And then later on, there's another character too that just like superior, like god level, that just kind of like falls into his lap and he befriends. And after that, there's just no real threat for the rest of the anime. Later on, they try to have a different type of threat, not like a big bad guy, but more of like a natural type of threat, which they eventually kind of overcome. But in general, I never really felt that the increase in kind of difficulty or like, oh, like something bad could happen. I kind of always knew that the main characters in general would be fine, specifically the main character, and whatever, big baddie was at their doorstep, they would be able to take out fairly easily. So, there is that. I will say that 90% of the story arcs in the show are actually really good and interesting, kind of regardless of any sort of like threat levels that they're facing. There was like a few arcs that I just was kind of bored with. I didn't really care about, to be honest with you. Mostly kind of near the end of the show, or rather of season one. But in general, there are a few there, but it is a solid show overall when it does come to story. One aspect of the story I really did like was the fact that there's a lot of characters that are introduced into the show that are either like really annoying at first, or they're the main bad guy, or sometimes even just the side bad guy. And you don't really like them at first, that is for sure. But eventually, through some good writing, you actually do start to like them. And the fact that the main character does a good job of forgiveness with kind of whatever people have done in their past, or the monsters have done in their past, I do find really interesting. And you get to see a lot of these characters develop from a very kind of single-minded, issued, this is my intention, this is what's driving me kind of thing. It can be to have like a complete kind of turnaround and kind of redemption arc with that. And there were definite times where I was like, I hate this character, I just want them to go away. And then like 3 episodes later, I'm like, oh, I actually actually kind of like them now, which is kind of cool. And that kind of brings me to the characters in the show. The characters as a whole, I really actually like. There's not a lot of characters where at the end of season one, I did not really like. There's a few that were just like, okay. But in general, I really liked pretty much all of the characters, which is cool. The only kind of issue with a lot of them is we don't get that much backstory. We get really good backstory on like one or two of them, but in general, it is pretty like inch deep for the most part. But at the very least, they're still very likable characters. There's Gopta. I don't want to spoil a whole lot, but he's kind of a really cool goblin character. Really useless and pathetic at first, and I was kind of mad, but as the season went on, he actually became one of my favorite characters. There's also the ogres, the orcs, and then Shizu as well. Really, really good character. And I think they did a really good job with developing our character as the season kind of progressed. One thing I actually really liked about the show, and I mentioned it a little bit before, is the fact that today's enemies are tomorrow's allies, and kind of like the transition and switch from that was always really good, and I always really enjoyed it, and I thought they did a good job with it overall. And this is kind of has a harem genre-esque kind of deal with the show itself, but I did never felt like they leaned too hard into it, which I'm really happy to see. They had a little bit of the fan service sprinkled in, but it was never like super over the top. I never was like, okay, yeah, this is like super harem anime-ish. If you've seen a hardcore harem anime that is just way over the top, you know what I mean? They didn't do that in this, which I was really happy to see, because I do feel like a lot of these story beats and the kind of the core of the actual show itself could have been really easily railroaded by that, and I feel like they never kind of crossed that line. They always did a good job of balancing between the core of the anime and the fact that it is at the same time somewhat of a harem anime as well. Another aspect of the show I actually really liked was the fact that names have like a power and weight to them in this world. It's really cool to see Rimuru, the main character, meet new creatures, new monsters, new groups of beings, and end up kind of naming them and kind of see what they evolve into. That's kind of really kind of cool to see. My only kind of nitpick with that though is that a lot of them just become more human-like with like slightly monster elements. I think the lizard people specifically I'm going to call out because it's very selective. Like some of them look normal, like, higher level monster creatures, and then the other ones look just straight human. Like, they don't even look like lizard people at all. So I did find that kind of, I guess, somewhat distracting. Although, once again, a little bit of harem elements, but it wasn't even just with like the chicks in the show, it was with the guys too. So I don't know. It was just kind of weird, I guess, for me. I wanted to see good evolution of them, like kind of like the goblins, the hobgoblins, but it was kind of inconsistent. But either way, I still really like that aspect of the show. It was really still really cool to see. I will say overall, I really enjoyed watching the show. I think it's a really good show to watch alongside a more heavy anime. I was watching RE0 kind of like on the side or while I was watching this as well, and then Attack on Titan. I felt like it did a good job of kind of balancing out the really dark and heavy tones of the show with something a little bit more fun and lighthearted. Yeah, there are some more serious elements in them, but it doesn't really last long in my book. It is a decent, somewhat comedy show at the same time. And in general, I really enjoyed the ride. I'm really looking forward to actually watching season 2, kind of seeing where they go from here. Season 1 had some really good story beats that I look forward to them kind of picking up where they left off in season 2. So I think that's going to be really fun. In general, I'm going to give that time I was reincarnated as a slime a solid 8 out of 10 with a seal of recommendation, shall we say. Once again, I really would recommend watching the show alongside a more heavy anime, so you still get more of the kind of elements that this show is missing, in my opinion. But I still really enjoyed it. It was a good time. Nothing outwardly bad about the show, that is for sure. And yeah, I suggest giving it a watch if you can. So that is all I have for you today. Hopefully you enjoyed my review of this anime. If you have any questions or comments about the review, leave them down in the comments below. If you've gotten this far, thank you for watching. Hit that like button and subscribe to the channel to join the Laughing Legion. As always, thank you so much for watching. Have a fantastic rest of your day. Do something good for yourself and take care.